To be able to use an agent in a simulation, the first thing you need to do is to create a collision layer that the bullet solver can understand. Let's first check what would happen if we would just drop this guy down in a rigid body sim. You can easily do that by a test sim ragdoll and just connect this guy here, and that will automatically create a rigid body sim for you. If we look here now, we can see that it's kind of working, but it's a bit odd. You can see that the motion is really weird. This sphere just stops very suddenly, and you have some intersections here. So what's going on? Let's dive into the DOP-Sim. So I'm just gonna select allow editing of contents, go in here into the ragdoll sim. You can see we have these big capsules, and what this is the actual geometry that bullets see, because we're using bullets to simulate the ragdoll. And if you go to this ragdoll, which is the actual object, and then go to this bullet data tab, you see that it has checked this show guide geometry. So if I deselect that and check this display geometry, then you see the geometry. But this is of course not the geometry that Bullet is using. Bullet is using this. And then you might wonder, where does this collision geometry come from? And it comes from when we are creating the agent. So as you can see here, this generate collision layer is checked. So Houdini is trying to generate the collision geometry for us, but it's not doing a very good job. What we need to do is to drop down an agent collision layer here. And this is very straightforward. So if I select this and also select this tool here, you can see I get a little dot for each transform. And what transform you see here in the viewport is driven by this minimum bone length. So if I would set this to 1, you can see this transform disappears because the length of the bone is less than 1. But let's put that back. And then it's really straightforward. You just click it, and by default it creates a capsule. But in this case, we're going to use a sphere instead. So let's drag it like this. Something like this. I'm going to select the next one. Even here, I'm going to select the sphere. Something like this. Perfect. And the head. So sphere. And something like this. Okay, perfect. For the hat though, you can see that a sphere, a capsule or a box won't be enough to recreate this shape. So you can solve this in different ways. One way is to use this custom option. With the custom option, you get a subpath where you can point to a mesh that you want to use as a collision geometry. Let us go into the subnet that we use to create the agent and point to the actual hat in there. Here you can see that I found a hat, and now I just need to go and point to it from the collision sub. And I apologize for not creating a proper out node, but for now I'm just going to point to transform 6. And now you can see I have a perfectly matched surface. So if we go back into the DOP-Sim, and this doesn't look like our hat geo at all. And the reason for that is that Bullet doesn't like concave surfaces, and instead it creates a convex hull. In this case, geometry is actually built up from 2 pieces, and we can therefore get around it by checking this create convex hull per set of connected primitives, and then you make a hull per mesh piece. So perfect. The other way, I said there was 2 ways. The other way you can do, if you don't want to use this custom thing, is that you could, if I take that away again and then click, I can first use a capsule here, and then I can just click this plus here and create the same transform again, and I can use another capsule. The only thing that is annoying with this is if I select it in the viewport, I'm just going to get the first shape, so I need to do it here by numbers. If I go and do something like this, dropping down this a little bit. So it's obviously not matching perfectly, but it's just to get the ID through. So if we go into the rigid body sim again, now the viewport seems a bit screwed up. So what you can do, I'm gonna open up a new scene view, and now it's alright again. Now we can see we have all the collision geo here. If we go up again and just let's see what we get now. Now you can see that we have a much more natural simulation, even though I probably need to fix this wobbly rolling away hat. But yeah, so in the next chapter, let us see how we're going to add dynamics to our current crowd sim.